It got cold in North Texas last week. Cold enough to freeze hoses, shut off water, and send a lot of folks looking for backup plans. But my guest today was still showering in his trailer while everyone else headed to the arena. Today, I'm talking with PRCA Announcer of the Year, Garrett Yerigan, about rodeo travel, RV life, and staying ahead of the road when it tries to bite back. Welcome back to the Wandering Gypsy RV Life podcast. Today, I am joined by a PRCA Announcer of the Year, Garrett Yerigan. Garrett, give us a little introduction as to how long you've been doing the rodeo announcing and all of that.
So I guess I'll start even a little bit before that. I was at my first rodeo when I was 2 weeks old. My mom and dad were both rodeo contestants, and from a young age, I never got the drive or the desire to be a contestant. Tried a little bit of everything from roping to sliding the steer saver to riding the steers and all the things. But it was always something about the announcer stand that drew my attention, and I started kind of dabbling in that and playing around and announcing the slack at rodeos when we were there anyway. I started doing that when I was about 6 or 7. And then from there, just started doing jackpot steer wrestlings and tie down ropings and barrel racings and really anything I could get microphone time at, youth rodeos. I did my first full rodeo when I was 12 years old. And as they say, snowball effect from there. And did my first international finals rodeo in 2014. I was I was 20 when I did it. Or actually, I was 19. I hadn't even turned 20 yet. I was 19 when I did it, and I did 7 of those in a row. And then joined the PRCA in 2000 and I think 13 or 14. Did my first PRCA rodeo in 2017. Won my first PRCA Announcer of the Year title in 2021. Followed it up in 22 with my second. And I've been very blessed to do some of the biggest and best rodeos in the world, from the American to the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, Cheyenne Frontier Days, the Governor's Cup. I've done the National Finals breakaway roping twice, including the very first one in 2020. So, it's been quite a ride, but I've enjoyed every minute.
All right, so I had coffee this morning with probably somebody you know, Sam Swearingen.
Oh,
he came through here. Yep, he came through here at Kickback Ranch. And Jerry Todd and Mindy Newell said tell you hello.
Yeah, tell them.
I had told them that I was hanging out with Garrett Yerigan on the podcast.
Yeah.
So what does rodeo travel look like for you week to week, Garrett?
It can vary a little, but then at times it stays exactly the same. It revolves around usually a full, either at least a half or a full day's travel. Kind of depends just what part of the summer run I'm in. In the winter time and even like spring and fall, it's weekend trips to and from home. Sometimes I'll jump on an airplane. Sometimes I'll drag the truck and trailer with me. But summertime, it's full-time RV life. I'll leave in usually mid-June, and then I'll, set off for the summer, and I will not see home again till usually around Labor Day weekend. And so, when you're living in your trailer, or bus or whatever you have, you've got to have something that's comfortable, that's reliable. I use a Bloomer brand horse trailer. It's a 3-horse trailer. Never had a horse in it. But it's got a very, very homey living quarters. Outlaw Conversions is who did the living quarters. And people ask me all the time, why don't you get a toy hauler or a actual living trailer? And no offense to those companies, but most of the time they're not built for the rigors of the road that we demand. I've had friends that have had more traditional RVs and camper trailers and stuff, and just always seems like there's things going on with tires, axles, cabinets, doors, just all the things. And knock on wood, Bloomer makes a phenomenal trailer. Outlaw does an awesome job with their conversions. So that's kind of the companies I trust to make it feel like home, but not be spending all my free time working on things. And the other thing too is if I was in the race car announcing business, I'd probably have some sort of race car trailer, but I'm in the rodeo business. So I want a horse trailer so that when I do get time or do get ready to sell it, I'm in the right market for it. I could walk out my door right now in this parking lot in Fort Worth and slap a for sale sign on the trailer, and I'd probably have 6 calls by the end of the day. It's just I'm in the right clientele for it. The big motorhome life is awesome. I've got friends that have those, and they're beautiful. But I kind of like having a pickup that I can still buzz around town in and unhook from, and without having a tow vehicle, obviously. This it's just my personal preference, but people sometimes ask, boy, how do you do it? How do you live in a trailer for months at a time? And again, it's just what I've known. It's what I grew up in, and traveling with mom and dad. When we were in Capri campers and the bed of pickups, and then we went to living quarters trailers and stuff. And it's just kind of what I've known. Sure, I love home. I love my bed at home, and I love stretching out and stuff and having a full house. But it's life on the road that this is home for me.
Right. And I'm sure you're more comfortable in your living quarters Bloomer trailer than you are in a hotel room for 10 or 12 or 15 nights. I mean, you've probably been in Fort Worth, 3 weeks now almost?
Yeah, this coming Saturday will be the 4th Saturday that we've been working here. And you're exactly right. I mean, hotels are nice. Don't get me wrong. I love a good Marriott hotel. It's nice having somebody clean up your mess after you and stuff. But yeah, there's something about having your space and being able to put all your clothes in the closets at the start of the run and not have to worry about, oh gosh, did I forget this, or did I leave that, or all of those kind of things that run through the back of your mind. And plus, our lifestyle, our rodeo culture is very social. And so when you can show up to a rodeo facility, sometimes it's a county fairgrounds, sometimes it's a state fairgrounds, different settings, you're in amongst your people. And when you're in a hotel, a lot of times you're kind of the odd man out. And it's like, well, rodeo's over. All my friends are hanging out at their trailers. I guess I'm going to head back to my hotel and miss out what's going on. Or, if people want to have some adult beverages, when you have your trailer there, you don't have to drive anywhere. There's just a lot of benefits. I mean, take Cheyenne Frontier Days, for example. Rodeo's in the middle of the day. We're done with the rodeo about 4 p.m. And then that's when the fun begins, from the night shows and the concerts to, just sitting around the trailer having some beers and stuff. You can do that and not have to worry about having to get in a vehicle and traffic and plus, driving after, some adult beverages. So just so many benefits to having your home right there. I kind of joke sometimes within stumbling distance.
That's it.
And it's just nice to have that comfort. And like I said, not have to worry about fooling with driving.
That's it. I mean, I'm in a 36-foot Class A motorhome towing a car behind me. Looking forward to getting out to Cheyenne this year to see you. But besides your frozen hose this weekend, what other surprises has the road provided Garrett Yerigan when it comes to having to do repairs on the road?
Let's see. Like I said, knock on wood, this trailer has been rock solid. I had a little generator trouble last year. The generators on these trailers are up on the hay pod. But for people who may not be familiar with horse trailers, it's kind of on top of the trailer at the very back. So probably the most or the bounciest place on the entire trailer. So they take a little bit of a beating. Had a little trouble with that. Fortunately, 99.9% of the places I go have a 50 amp plug to plug into. So my generator does not get used a whole lot, but when you need it, you want it working, right?
Right.
Um, so a little bit of trouble there. Obviously watching like any trailer or mobile thing, you got to watch tires, bearings, axles, just make sure they're wearing properly and not crooked. I may or may not hit a curb every now and then, so I've got to watch and make sure my axles stay in line. So just keeping an eye on stuff like that. But honestly, no real major issues. What you referred to the other day, the frozen hose. Yes, it did get very cold here in North Texas for a few days last week, and I guess pat myself on the back here a little bit. I finally got smart, and when I knew it was going to get cold, I went ahead and opened all the cabinets and down like where the water pump is, and kind of preheated, if you will, and got some early heat
Mm-hmm.
down there. So before it even started to get cold, all of those devices and mechanisms were kind of prepared and got heat, got some warm air to them, and left all that open during the freeze. And knock on wood, I think I was the only trailer in the RV park here that did not freeze up completely. Like I was still showering like normal, flushing toilets, brushing teeth, all those things that require the water pump.
Yep.
I was still functioning, and my trailer, like there's a little bit of an unlevel spot where I'm at here, so the nose of my trailer is pretty high up in the air just to make the trailer level. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cold air that rushes up underneath my trailer, and so to be able to stay ahead of that, I was very very pleased with how everything worked. And so yeah, little things like that you just got to be cognizant of to make sure that you're kind of ahead of the game, because old Jack Frost, if you're not paying attention, he will rear back and bite you hard. And again, Dickey's Arena here where we're at has awesome locker rooms, and Anthony Lucia, one of my co-announcers here, and Bob Tallman and
Mm-hmm.
Brett Narducci that's doing the music. They had to go use the showers in Dickey's Arena, but I was kind of smiling every time that I saw them headed to the arena, and I was getting to shower in my own trailer. So
Amen.
little pieces of advice like that to anybody watching. If you're going somewhere cold, if you can get your doors and cabinets open and get warm air to those water components, just little pieces like that will go a long ways in saving you a lot of repair.
So, did you fill up your fresh water tank on board and use it instead of trying to run off of a water hose?
I did, and I honestly do that quite a bit. There's just a handful of places that I will actually hook up to water, because
Mm-hmm.
again, we don't stay at a lot of legitimate professional RV parks, right? Where water
Right.
pressure is monitored, regulated, controlled, and enhanced almost to sustain tens or hundreds of campers all potentially showering at the same time. So water pressure becomes an issue at a lot of facilities. So 9 times out of 10, I just fill my tank up, and the pump in the trailer has a better pressure than the city connection. So
Yes.
here that's not the case. Here again, it's a legit RV park, prepared for things like this, and our water pressure here is almost too good. Side story: Brad Narducci, who I mentioned a second ago, he's parked next to me directly. And the other day I
Yep.
ran home, and he was going to be a nice guy and fill up my freshwater tank for me when they turned the water back on after shutting it off for the cold. And he called me and he said, "I'm soaking wet thanks to you." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I went to fill up your freshwater tank and I turned the water on. And by the time I could get to the end of the hose to grab it, it looked like a fire hose rodeo out here. And I could not get a hold of the end of the hose. And it just completely drenched me." And I said, "Yeah, water pressure is pretty good in our lot." But
Right.
we don't have that everywhere. So, and
No.
a lot of times I will just fill up anyway. Here, it depends on the weather, right? I mean, obviously when they are going to shut the water off, the city of Fort Worth does a great job monitoring temperatures, and they give us a heads up if they're going to shut the water off. They put a little sign on our doors to say, "Hey, heads up! At this time on this day, we're shutting the water off. Expected to turn it back on this time this day." So they communication's really good here, so we know kind of, hey, prepare and fill up the tanks and kind of get ready. So
Okay, so do you filter your water as it goes into your freshwater tank or into a city water connection?
I don't. Obviously, I know lots of people do. It's honestly kind of something I forget about until I see someone park next to me with a filter, and then when it's time when I'm somewhere to buy one, I again forget about it. I think one time I may have bought one and kind of ran it out, and then I forgot to buy them again. So no filterization, pressurization. These Bloomer trailers, again, thanks to Outlaw conversions, they have a built-in pressurizer on them. So the
Good.
little deal you can buy and put kind of right on the connection into the trailer. Not necessary.
The pressure
Yeah,
regulator. Yeah, the pressure
yeah.
regulator.
There's one built in here, so I can, like, talking about the good pressure here in Fort Worth. I can just plug it right into the side of the trailer and not worry about it.
Good deal. And you mentioned tires and axles and all of that. Do you run a tire pressure monitoring system?
I don't. I guess I'm a little bit old school there. I give it the old eyeball test and just kind of watch them and see how they're wearing. And my situation is probably a little different in monitoring tires, just because, again, I'm pulling a horse trailer meant to haul horses that weigh anywhere from 12 to 1,500 pounds a piece, and this is a 3-horse trailer. So I mean, this trailer is rated to haul 36 to 4,500 pounds of horse. And I don't haul horses. Like I said, it's never had a horse in it. I haul a little bit of sound equipment, audio equipment, but nothing near to the weight of what a horse is. So my trailer bounces a lot more than most horse trailers. So I run my tires probably a little under pressure compared to most, just because it does take some of the bounce out. And again, the trailer is not hauling what it's rated for. So wearing sometimes gets a little different. My biggest issue is because it's rated for that weight, and I'm not doing it. My suspension and axles almost run up a little bit, so I really have to
Right.
watch the outsides of my tires, because I'm not straightening that axle down where they're running even. So that's usually when I have tire issues. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
what it is the outsides wearing before the inside. So just something that again, I just have to be cognizant of and keep an eye on.
Right. So, tire pressure monitoring systems, one of the things I'm trying to do with my podcast is educate both RVers and rodeo travelers. And if a tire pressure monitoring system not only monitors your tire pressures on your trailer tires, it also monitors tire temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see a temperature spike, you might have a bearing going bad.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing. National Trailer Source has been a partner of mine for many years, and that's who I
Hmm.
buy my trailers through and get them through. And every year, whether it's in the fall when I get home, or I usually try to do it in the springtime. It just depends on my schedule. But I'll send my trailer up there to their shop in Decatur, Texas. They've got locations all across the U.S., but I use the location in Decatur, and I set it up there and just kind of, hey, go through it, make sure everything looks good, no leaks or issues. And then specifically, I'll tell them check tires, bearings, axles, and brakes. And those are kind of my 4 things to make sure they look through. And if there's a bearing that needs more grease or whatever, they'll take care of that, and they'll check tires, and they're really good about, hey, brakes are okay right now, but maybe next year you need to look at replacing them or whatever. So that it's preventative, right? I mean, preventative maintenance on
Right.
anything. Anybody out there, find a local trailer repair place that you trust, and build a relationship with them, because I promise I have been on the other side of the bill, and I promise that a little preventative maintenance is way cheaper than repair maintenance.
I had to order a water pump after this freeze, even though I supposedly did everything right. It still froze up on me, and now I've got a gasket seal on my water pump that failed.
Yeah.
So it's a little, This life is interesting, Garrett. It really is. You'd be surprised what the road throws at you.
Oh, it is. And, of course, some people watching this may be going, well, goodness, why didn't you drip your faucets? Well, you can, but if you leave that drip going, you got two risks you're going to run. One, you're going to burn the pump up. And two, you're going to run out of fresh water that you need. So, dripping your faucet like you do at home doesn't necessarily always work in a mobile home or vehicle. So you're right. It's always something, and it just keeps you on your toes. And if you had a journal for all the things you've learned from life on the road, you'd have a new chapter every single day. So it's fun though. I mean, it's keeps, like I said, keeps you on your toes.
Yep. I mean, I've written 3 books about the RV life for education
Yeah, I
for
believe
people.
that.
But yep. And because you're right, this life on the road, whether you're traveling up and down the rodeo circuit or you're like me, you're going to RV rallies, the road will always throw something fun at you. So what are some of your habits that you're in when you get to, say, the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo during the day, and how do you prep for announcing one of the biggest rodeos of the Texas swing?
Yeah. So every day, I mean, there's parts of it that are the same. It kind of depends. So if it's round one day of a bracket, so the format here, not to get too far off your question, but format here is there's 7 brackets of competition. Each bracket consists of 2 go rounds. Then we feed into a wild card. The top 2 money earners from each bracket go to a semifinals. The third place goes to the wild card. And then wild card is actually tonight, as we're sitting here having this conversation. The semifinals tomorrow and the next day, and then this Saturday is the finals. So if it's the round 1 of a bracket, that's kind of the day where we press reset. We look at the new stock that's up that night and the next day. Bring in the Cowboy notes that we have for that pool. Round 2 days are pretty relaxed because barring some issue in the schedule the day before, all my notes and stuff are done for that night because it's the same contestants. I already did their stock notes for that night, so it's kind of one of those, just chill days, relaxed days.
Right.
Today being wild card day is another kind of round 1 type day. Working on stock notes for tonight. Again, we already know the contestants because they came from a previous bracket. It's nobody new.
Right.
And tomorrow will be a similar day to that. Friday, again, barring any holdups in the schedule tomorrow, I'll have everything for Friday already done, and they just have to sit and wait on who gets to play Saturday and find that out. So notes take up usually the morning. I usually try to get up around 9, and it usually takes me 2 or 3 hours to just make sure I've got everything ready and feel good about it. Try to go grab a little lunch. Some days it's fast food. Some days it's good sit down. But try to go get a little lunch, come back and try to catch a little nap maybe. Some days phone rings and different things and may not get that little hour power nap. But here on a normal day, we leave here about 3:30. We leave the trailer about 3:30, walk over to the building for a 4:00 production meeting. If it's one of our specialty days where there's an extra little rehearsal in there, the meeting will be moved up to 3, and then the rehearsal's at 4. And then we go back to our rodeo office. Dickey's Arena here is the premier facility for rodeo. We even have our own announcer office that we get to hide out in. So
I saw that on Facebook, Garrett. I saw that.
It's nothing special. It's just a little kind of 10 by 10 room, but it's really nice to just have our space that we can, we've got a hanging rack for all of our shirts, and it's kind of our locker room, if you will. We go in there and just kind of finalize notes, and if there's changes in the roster and lineup, contestants or livestock or both, we get those from Eva Chadwick and all the ladies in the office. And then we go eat. They have an amazing catering team here at Dickey's Arena, and it's something amazing every night. From last night, we had roast beef and steamed carrots and mashed potatoes. They have some nights it's lasagna, some nights it's Oh gosh, there's a kind of it's a new thing this year. It's like a biscuit and or chicken and biscuit casserole that's amazing. And then some days it's easy. It's tacos or stuff like that. So we go over there and eat, and then usually back to the office about 6 to just kind of chill again. And 6:30 we head to the announcer stand for the 7 o'clock show start, just to get up there and kind of lay out all of our papers and stuff and just relax and get in the chair, get in the right state of mind. 7:30 rodeo kicks off, happens usually for about 2 hours and 15 to 30 minutes. Back to the office, change clothes, back into our kind of casual clothes. Then we go to a post-production meeting to just kind of digest and talk about what happened that night and if there's anything to change and work on before we get to the next day's meeting. And then back to the trailer and call it a night and start all over again the next day.
Hey, that sounds like a whole lot of fun. Do you ever cook at your trailer?
The answer used to be no, because I'm a terrible cook, and I'm still a terrible cook, but I was last years old when I finally figured out how to properly operate a convection microwave oven. And that sounds so terrible for me to say, but I never really understood the whole convection side. And finally, I don't even remember where I was. I think maybe we were in Cheyenne. And my wife and I, we were talking about it because we wanted to start making things other than just stuff you throw in the microwave. And so it was a frozen pizza of all things, a Tombstone frozen pizza.
Right.
I said, hey, when you go to Walmart, grab one, because I know that people use these convection microwaves to make stuff like that. By golly, I'm going to figure it out. So just buy one pizza. That way, if I ruin it, we're not out a bunch of pizzas. And anyway, she went and got it, and I studied and studied. And I finally was like, this is way easier than I was making this out to be. So now, again, I'm dang sure no professional chef, but I can at least expand now and use the convection part of the oven part of the microwave and get a little further in my horizons. So,
well, that's good. I do a lot of crock pot meals. I mean, which would fit perfectly in your Western lifestyle.
Yeah.
You set the crock pot and you leave it.
Yeah, and I love that kind of stuff when we're at home. I know this will probably come as a shock to you, but the counter space that I have in this trailer gets taken up rather quickly with computers and paperwork and notes and stuff. So my beautiful blushing bride, she just kind of smiles at me every time when I lay out all my stuff and reminds me that there are other activities that have to happen on these counter spaces, like, I don't know, cooking. So it's always a fun little balance. But yeah, now that we've got the convection microwave oven figured out, maybe the crock pot is what's next.
Okay. Well, so let's close this out. Where can people find Garrett Yerigan? Besides Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo.
That's a good question. I have to try to find myself sometimes throughout the year. No, it's real easy. All my social medias are at Garrett Yerigan. Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. I do not have a TikTok. That is the one thing I will not cave in and give into. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram.
I don't either.
Facebook and Instagram is the best place to find. From there, you can link to my website where my schedule's on there. Right now, this week, we're finishing up Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. Next week, I head to the Dixie National Rodeo in Jackson, Mississippi. And then a couple weeks of bull ridings across the country. Let's see, March. March will be here before we know it. I'll be in Goliad, Texas in the middle of March, and then Waxahachie, Texas, the end of March, and then gangbusters from there through April and on through the summer.
Yep. So we know you're doing Cheyenne. What are your big summer rodeos that you're doing where somebody could come out and see you at?
Yeah. Let's see. Kind of the longer run events, the bigger high profile events. Let's see. June, Fort Smith, Arkansas, the old Fort Days Rodeo. That's a long-standing traditional rodeo that's a week long. Starts on Memorial Day, runs through Saturday. Going to the Dinosaur Roundup in Vernal, Utah this year for the first time. Excited about that. Pecos, Texas, the end of June. Cheyenne in July. Let's see, the Farm City Pro Rodeo in Hermiston, Oregon in August. The Extreme Bronx Tour finale in August. September, the Governor's Cup in Sioux Falls. October, the Heart of Texas Fair and Rodeo in Waco. That's another kind of 2-weekend event. So yeah, I'm scattered out all over the country.
Well, great. Hey, Garrett, thank you again for joining the Wandering Gypsy RV Life. Good luck and hope we have a good performance. I've been watching it on the Cowboy channel. I saw Jacobs Crawley had an injury a couple of weeks ago or a week ago and is out for a while.
Yep.
But you know, I met your dad 30 years ago at a rodeo in Virginia Beach, Virginia,
yep.
An IPRA Ken Treadway show.
Yep. Yeah, it's obviously thoughts and prayers to Jacobs. Fractured. I don't remember the exact vertebrae, but fractured a couple vertebrae just right below where he broke some a couple years ago. So very scary moment there. So thoughts and prayers to Jacobs for a speedy recovery. But yeah, other than that, it's been an awesome show this year. Again, the weather hit us a little bit last week, but crowds have been outstanding ever since. You can tell everybody's wanting to get out of the house, and we're looking forward to a strong finish this week. But thanks, Stan, for having me on the podcast.
Thank you, Garrett. And this podcast will be coming out probably a week from Saturday. Thanks for riding along with me. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a fellow wanderer. You can find more stories, photos, and videos at wanderinggypsyrvlife.com. And before I sign off, I want to give a quick shout out to a few folks who help keep this podcast rolling. Techno RV has been my go-to for RV gear, from water filtration to GPS and everything in between. You can find their products through my affiliate link at Techno RV. They really do help you adventure more and worry less. And finally, my good friend Doug Simcox and his podcast, Beyond the Chutes. If you love rodeo history, cowboy storytelling, and the legends of the arena, it's well worth a listen. Until next time, keep your rig rolling smooth, keep your coffee hot. Remember, sometimes the best roads are the ones the GPS won't even show you. Not all who wander are lost.